What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. We are on the final installment of Exit the Cave. This was, I think, the best section, the final section, the last, whatever, third of this book that I read. It had the most nuggets. This is going to be a bit of a lengthy video, but lots of golden, beautiful nuggets. You can skip around with the timestamps if you want. By the way, that's my Instagram handle. I'm just putting it up here, at Pink Tourmaline Huzefa, if you want to connect with me on Instagram. The reason why I'm encouraging people to do so is just that's a great way for people to send me ideas and just have chats with me. A lot of people were sending me emails. I think this is an easier place where I can connect with people. So make sure to check that out. But without further ado, we are going to get into this. And man, now that I've finished this book, it was phenomenal. One of the best books I've read on this topic. Can't wait to read the second book. And hopefully, after I get through the second book, we can arrange an interview with Howdie Mickoski, because he himself has said we've corresponded briefly via email, but he doesn't want to come on and have an interview until I've read both of his this book and his second book, which I totally understand. I think it's fair because he wants me to have full context of his viewpoints and philosophies before we have a discussion. So I'm definitely going to do that because, man, this book, it was great. The first two sections that I read, but this one has got some really cool nuggets, and he goes into a lot of discussions about the Cathars, which is obviously we've all heard about Gnosticism and the Gnostics, which is this very fascinating sect. If you haven't heard of them, religious sect. I hesitate to call them Christians. I think people consider them a sect of Christianity, but I feel it's very, very different from mainstream Christianity. And if you know about it, I think you would agree. So we've heard about that. They're one of the earlier groups that talked about this idea of us being in a bit of a soul trap, that the material world was this offshoot bad copy creation from the demiurge, this negative entity, etc. But I hadn't really learned a lot about the Cathars. And the Cathars, in some ways, he even discusses in his book, might seem to be connected to Gnosticism. And this was a religious movement like the Gnostics that were essentially obliterated, but existed at a later time, I think in like the 1200s or the 1300s. So we're going to talk about all of that. He mentions all of this in this book. There's even a really cool section that he says he's going to explore more in depth. Maybe it's in the second book or in later writings, about Dante's Inferno actually being a text containing ideas from the Cathars, which is a very, very interesting take. But I didn't really include extras of it because it's just touched upon lightly. But before if I want to talk about that, I need to learn way more about that. I obviously read Dante's Inferno when I was in high school, and it's perceived by most to have just really be the mainstream idea of Christianity's hell, maybe purgatory and heaven and whatnot. But he's got a whole different idea about it, which is really, really interesting, which hopefully we'll dive into at another time. But that's not in this video. So without further ado, let's talk about what is in this video. And we're going to start step by step. Just so many beautiful nuggets of wisdom that I've extracted. So first of all, we're going to go again real quick. Who is Howdie Mickoski? He is the author of Exit the Cave. He argues that earthly life may be a deceptive cave designed to keep souls trapped in reincarnation. And he's drawing from ancient texts, Gnostic ideas, NDEs, and modern simulation style stories. He questions whether karma guides, life reviews, and the light are truly benevolent or part of a system that recycles consciousness. And his main message is about recognizing the trap, reclaiming sovereignty, and refusing to be sent back into the cycle. Here we go. Excerpt number 1. We're talking about the dangers of prayer. And again, this goes back to the idea of claiming sovereignty and not looking for a savior figure, not giving our power away, just the same way that it's discussed in the idea where we're agreeing to come back here. We're signing some sort of a contract, whether it's physically signing or it seems to be more of a conscious agreement. That's the astral way, I guess, of signing a contract. And so it goes in line with this. So I'm going to read this, and it's pretty powerful. I mentioned the dangers of prayer in chapter 1 and being turned into prey by performing it the way our parents and religion taught. In Falling for Truth, I shared what I learned from my time with various native Indian medicine men. For them, prayer was not about asking for something, but providing a thank you for what was there already, gratitude. This saying of thanks and wishing things well is about your experience in this moment. Normal prayer is about the future, demanding what we want and believing some force outside ourselves will be the factor who decides if we get it or not. One prayer is connective, the other setting us up to be manipulated. Now, I would also, on the other side of the fence, to play devil's advocate, I think some even religious figures and some mainstream religions will say that this is actually what real prayer should be. So I don't want to say that all other religions are saying that you need to pray and ask for what you want, because I think I've heard even Christian pastors say God is not your messenger trying or delivery person trying to give you what you want. Prayer is not about that. So but nevertheless, I think this makes a really interesting point, going back to this idea of sovereignty and believing in yourself and loving yourself and having believing that power in yourself. Praying to someone or something for things seems to be an implicit giving away of that power. We don't want to pray to anything that is outside of us, for that is taking away our power. We do not want to send more energy towards anything that might be part of the trap. And again, by the way, who's receiving those prayers, right? We assume that it's necessarily going to this one singular God, but if there are indeed other entities that may be preying upon us and receiving those communications and then delivering things to us, how does that affect our essence? How does that affect this, like, quote unquote contract that we may be under? All food for thought. As suggested in the blueberry story above, it seems that we can pray safely to the elements of our world, be they trees, fish, birds, animals, rocks, clouds, water, or plants. Just like us, each has a spirit, a power, and I would say a soul. Each in their own way is trapped in matter, just as we are. Your dog, the deer outside, or the maple tree in your yard are seeking freedom as well. And the prayer seems strongest when you connect to the moment, not go searching for them somewhere other than where you currently are. This part might be a little bit of personal perspective or speculation from Howdie Mickoski, but I do find it to be interesting and wanted to share this excerpt. Okay, now this is where it gets very technical, and I'm going to try to do my best to explain it. I'm not sure I fully understand exactly what Howdie Mickoski is saying, but man, I think I just thought it was very important to share it and try to make sense of it. And then I'll share the excerpts, and hopefully maybe you guys can make more sense of it than me, but I want to share it nonetheless. This realm, he means, is a dual reality, as all computer realms be made from zeros and ones. This gets mirrored in physical reality to become the yin yang, male, female, love, hate, or up, down. A big one duality plays out is good versus evil. Unlike the others, which are sort of balanced, you can't have left without right, for example, it is not so with good and evil. They are a unique pair because they are not equal. Good and evil are not really two sides of the same coin. The way left and right or day and night are, both exist in this created realm. And the problem is that good and evil, only one is a genuine creation, whereas the other is a copy. This is interesting because from Intuitive Underground, when they remote viewed, I think, like, the God mind, or what they believe to be the God mind, they said it was perfectly balanced, which the implication there is it's 50-50, part good, part maybe part positive, part negative, and thereby everything kind of emanates from both good and bad, potentially, is source energy. But what Howdie Mickoski is saying, and we're still trying to get to the bottom of this, right? These are maybe two different theories. Maybe they mesh together in some way. I'm not sure. But what he's saying is, no, true good versus relative good. True good, there's no polarity. There's no balance. That is the true good. It's just stable, still. But in this realm, we have this kind of relative good and evil, seeming balance, seeming yin yang, but it's a copy. It exists only because, or it seemingly exists, that we have, like, good and bad as dueling, this dualistic nature, these two forces that seem to be dueling each other. I think what he's trying to say is it's not real, and it only feels like this within this artificial simulated realm that is a bad copy. Oof. The demiurge copied the realm of the true good, pleroma, I guess, to model relative good in this particular realm. So, like, the relative good can never be actually true good, but it's somewhat of a counterbalance to this evil. But the relative good, I think, is what he's trying to say, can never aspire or can never raise to the heights of true good. Maybe that's only possible outside of this realm. Or real good. Real good does not exist. Yeah, there you go. Real good does not exist inside the cave, only outside this matrix simulation. Real good cannot interact directly here. Now, is that speculation, or where did he get that from? I'm not sure. But he's saying maybe there's some, like, barrier to entry, or this realm is encased within some bubble or some envelope, and maybe real good cannot penetrate in. I'm not sure where that idea comes from, but I think that's what he's saying, as it would need to take a material form to do so. Again, not sure why would it have to take a material form? Or maybe it needs to be invited in. I don't know. Thus becoming part of the simulation and therefore could not still be real good. So I guess there's an assumption here that if it would come into the simulation, it would no longer continue to be the real good. What it can do is drop information, place in holographic inserts, move energy, show messages and dreams, or by simple intuitive flashes. It does not want us to fix the world. It wants us to see through it. So I think it's, and this idea gets echoed elsewhere, that that is part of the trap, is that we keep trying to fix the world, or we think we can fix the world. I mean, how many people go out there and say, I want to grow up and I want to change the world. I want to make the world a better place. And what Howdie is saying is that is part of what keeps us locked into the world, what keeps us attached to it. We keep thinking we're getting a little bit closer, and then boom, it's pushed a little bit further back. And then we're trying to get back to that point, and we just keep trying and trying. And then maybe we pass on and we want to come back and try again, but we just stay stuck in this cyclic existence, because the design of the matrix, the design of the simulation, according to Howdie Mickoski, I believe, is just inherently flawed. It is inherently negative, and real good, true good cannot penetrate into this world, and therefore it's a fool's errand, I think is what he's saying. Evil in this realm, the evil in this material realm, is not a copy. It is the direct creation from the mind of the demiurge. So the good is a copy, I guess what he's saying, but not the evil. And as such, is real within the simulation. So the evil is real. Or you could say it is the simulation. The simulation itself is evil. That is why relative good can rarely win here. What we call good is a copy. So the evil is not, but the good is a copy. So that was what's been copied in here. And therefore, it's not real good. While that which it battles evil is the construct. So that is what we're fighting against, the entire construct, the entire matrix. And evil has the advantage here because it is the simulation. Real good has the complete advantage, but not here, but does not appear directly in matter. You might say real good always wins, but that is because it is absolute, total, and complete. It contains both relative good and evil within it. Oh, he does say it contains it all within. Well, I guess that would make sense because it's everything. I missed that before. Thus, it can never truly be in conflict or at war within itself. It is still, however, when making good versus evil arguments, people are really not aware of the differences and parameters between real good, relative good, and evil. Like, I'm trying my best. Maybe I can talk to Howdie and he can break this down a little better for me. I think I kind of understand this, but it's a lot. Now he goes to this idea of the good guys always win. I want to chat a little bit more deeply about this. Who really are the good guys and bad guys? No one knows. The good guys always win is just another false program inserted in your mind via TV programming. How can all the elites who have trampled the world for centuries still be in charge, right? How does the system never seem to get fixed? We think we're fixing it. We think we win the war, and then it's just like the cycle repeats, and then more people come into power, and then there's still the same systems in place. And what are the wars really, and who's really in power behind the scenes? Is it really these nations that are kind of changing on the face of things, power structures or controllers, are really people behind the scenes that we don't even know who they are, and they're just still maintaining power while it's just a big show, right? How can those who have been performing evil deeds on humans and planets for years not have been held accountable for the crimes? Really think that over. I think most of us who are here on this channel have been thinking about this for years. Why the world and so many things just don't seem to add up, don't seem to make sense. The phrase should change from the good guys always win to the good guys win every once in a while, and it is great, but rare day when they do. So I thought that was a interesting perspective. You know, one thing that comes to mind, just a very minor example of this, is this being a false program. I think we fall victim to this every 4 years in the US when we have an election cycle for the president, and it's just so bifurcated. We have this, which I think I felt this for such a long time, and many others I'm sure feel the same way, that it's this false dichotomy. And the Democrats, right, whatever they would say, they are the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys. The Republicans feel the other way, right? They're the good. So we have this bizarre construct of evil and good. They may not call it evil and good, but it's kind of what it feels like. They're fighting tooth and nail, and they're trying to get their good guy to win. And so it's like, I think it makes sense in this context really clearly. There obviously is no true good, because we have these two sides kind of equally divided, both feeling very passionately about their sides. And yes, somebody wins, but according to perspective, the good guys win. According to the other perspective, the bad guys win, and then it flip-flops over and over. And in reality, nobody really wins. No true good guy really wins. It's just a perspective based on somebody wins, and then based on your perspective, the good guy or the bad guy wins. But really, it's just tabula rasa. It's nothing, and we're stuck back in the same position. The real way to win, Howdie Mickoski puts it, is to not play the game. All right, but I'll let him explain more with this excerpt. The only winning move is not to play. That's it. That is how you overcome the spiritual warfare in this reality of good and evil. You win by not playing. So what does he mean by that? It doesn't mean exiting the game per se. He means you reject all that is evil, false, lies, and deceit, and instead choose truth, sovereignty, and freedom. What the consequences are for the material form is minorly important, whereas what happens to the spiritual and soul is fully important. We put our attention on that which we come from and wish to return, not the vortex trap we are caught in currently. This resonates with me, and I think this probably resonates with so many people who so long ago started to see this again. I'm going to go back to the politics example and the current events and the news cycle and all this garbage that is thrown into our minds. And we have probably, many of you guys have similarly just stepped out of the vortex. Instead of being in the vortex and trying to win, and maybe I'm going to go into politics, maybe I'm going to move to DC, maybe I'm going to run for office and fix things and really get to the heart of the issues and really help the people. And I think probably many people do want to do that with good intentions, but likely get sucked up into this vortex without even realizing it. Or maybe the vortex is so powerful, they're powerless within it. And eventually the way that they meant to affect change constantly gets compromised. And so what Howdie is saying is, instead of getting sucked into this vortex and trying to play that game, just don't play. Just don't play. Get out of the vortex, step outside of the system, outside of the game, and instead just try to defer to real truth, as opposed to try to cling to truth when you're in a whirlwind of nonsensical clown world lies. So I think that's what he's saying. And like I said, it's something that I felt and that has resonated with me. I'm curious to know if it resonates with you too as well. Leave your comments in the comment section if it has. So again, further, basically reiterating the same message. He says, don't fight, detach. That is the message. When you reject this realm as insane and choose to be sane and leave it at that, the system gets confused. It is expecting a reaction to its push, and you are not giving it. That does not mean the world is going to change or it will stop coming after you. We choose this way not to better our lives or save our lives. This is very important. But to prepare ourselves to no longer be in this insane computer AI reality. We exit not by fighting our way out. We exit by rejecting the AI system and not going along with it, any of it. We stop our attachments, addictions, and contracts. Doing so redirects energy back to ourselves. We lessen the loose harvest, and we use that now freed energy to prepare for the infinite journey from which we have been deceived and stop from taking. You see what I'm saying? This section of the book has so many powerful nuggets like this, empowering nuggets, but also nuggets that feel rife with truth and deep truth, that we feel that intrinsically. No one really grasps love besides no one who claims they know. Okay, so this is going into the idea of love. We hear a lot of people in the spiritual world and the new age world talk about love and the idea of love, and it's all about love and light. And sometimes that message and that idea, while there's truth behind it, as Howdie explains here, it can be corrupted. Man, oh man, it goes back to Pink Tourmaline. I still just can't believe how much it's just so crazy to me that I just picked this gem because I guess like I gravitated towards it for some reason when I was in that shop that one day. And then I created this channel name when I had a totally different viewpoint of the world. And now it just seems to keep coming up over and over. Anyways, I digress. No one who claims they know all about love really has much of a grasp of it. Within this reality is nothing more than a command, a computer code designed to get people to, like a member of the opposite sex, to have children, to care and protect the new children, so they can grow and be harvested for energy. Love things enough that it will be good for a person to keep living and therefore be a good energy harvest, etc., etc. That is what love is in our world, a program hardwired into us that makes us feel good about our moving in directions, which ultimately provides energy to the archons. Many people's love relationships are manipulated from the moment the two people meet, as suggested in Eve Lorgan's excellent book, Alien Love Bite. Haven't read it, but I'd love to check it out. So you see, he's not saying there's nothing to love, but the concept of love as is described in our modern society, kind of like this idea, like it has to be love between in like a loving relationship or whatever it may be. He's saying that's not the love that he's talking about that is important. Okay, here's the love. Here's the true love. Hopefully this clear saying will get you tired of all the insanity here on earth and you choose to be finished with it. That is love. Getting tired of the insanity, detachment. That's what he's saying. Loving your true self. Pink Tourmaline, self-love, right there, again and again and again. In loving your true self, your soul, enough to turn your back on this realm and walk out for good, to focus where real love exists, as well, knowing that other sheep might in turn get the same courage and follow you later. You don't rescue the world, you rescue yourself. We're going to come back to this in a second because I want to talk about that part. And you can only do that by loving yourself fully. The message, this is a world to learn love, on one level is correct. The problem is that it gets twisted around to believe it is about loving objects outside of yourself. Just like prayer, a very powerful act is hijacked by the matrix, and the love and light crowd trap themselves in the very thing meant to free them. Love is truth, man. And truth sees this as a realm of false and suffering, and has no interest in this place. Love is love for the self, because when you see there is no other, you pray to yourself. You love yourself. The rest will happen on its own. And when you learn the rest will happen on its own when you learn the great secret. Man, just you tell me yourself. I mean, again, it's about yourself. It's not about me. It's not about everybody listening, but let me know if that resonates with you or not. Now, the only thing I want to go back to, and again, I'm open to this. I don't know the right protocol here, but it says you don't rescue the world, you rescue yourself, right here, right? And you can only do that by loving yourself fully. And maybe that is the way that we should be operating. But I've mentioned this before, and I think even Tony talked about it during our interview, Tony Sayers. He said he had a feeling that he was here to make a splash effectively. And I have that same feeling. And maybe that's part of the trap. Maybe that's part of the manipulation. I don't know. So I'm definitely open to changing my mind on this. But I do feel like there's some reason that I'm discovering this information, or whatever information I'll do. Who knows where I'll be a year from now as I continue my quest. But that there's a reason why I'm doing this, and I am supposed to share it, and I am supposed to rescue the world, I guess, is that the way that he's saying it. But you know what I mean? Something along those lines. So that's the only part that I read that I'm wondering if is that universally applicable, or maybe there are some of us who, because we have this feeling that we're meant to pursue it, and this is I don't know. Anyways, food for thought. Now, this is a really cool part. He talks about why we should, and this is again repeated by multiple people, the purpose of the OBEs, of astral projection, and also lucid dreaming, why we should actively be trying to pursue these practices and practice them regularly. The point of these exercises is to help keep our conscious awareness clear when in non-physical form, as will happen in the after-death state. It is such a shock that to not have preparation for it will mean we will not be clear. And as I have shown, this is the main time we need our total clarity to avoid all the attempted tricks and deceptions that will be thrown at us. The better we get at this in the living world, the better we would be at it on the other side. Again, in Thenosis, Jason Georgiani gives an entire protocol of how to prepare your consciousness to basically strengthen it, a workout program, if you will, so you will be strong enough not to be manipulated and preyed upon. Now we're going to get into the section where Howdie talks about the Cathars. So before we get into the Cathars, I pulled this summary offline of the Cathars. I wasn't sure how it was going to mesh with what Howdie says in terms of the Cathars, but it actually feels pretty accurate in terms of what Howdie discusses in his book. Again, very, very interesting religious group. I have never heard of them before. Never heard of them in any of my academic studies. I guess I'm not surprised, but here's a quick summary of who the Cathars were. Again, if you know who the Gnostics are, the Cathars seem to be cut from the same cloth. The Cathars were a medieval Christian spiritual movement. Probably not even right to call them a Christian spiritual movement, but that's maybe how history remembers them, especially active in southern France during the 12th and 13th centuries, and the Catholic Church condemned as heretical. They were often, like the Gnostics, they were often described as dualists. They believed the material world was corrupt or created by an evil lower power, while the spiritual realm belonged to the true God. Because of this, they emphasized purity, asceticism, rejection of worldly power, and a sharp distinction between the soul and the body. Their most dedicated members, called perfects or perfecti, practice strict celibacy, vegetarianism, poverty, and spiritual discipline. And it's funny, all of these things seem in line with this idea of not being attached. Also talked about in the Tibetan Book of Dead as well, in terms of helping yourself escape cyclic existence, to leave behind attachment. The church saw them as a serious threat, leading to Albigensian crusade. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. And later inquisitions, which violently suppressed the movement. In modern soul trap or Gnostic style discussions, the Cathars are often interesting because their worldview resembles older Gnostic ideas. The world is a kind of prison or false creation, and salvation as awakening the trapped spirit from material bondage. Okay, so this is a brief summary of the Cathars. Now we're going to hear what Howdie Mickoski has to say about them. The Cathars felt they had the right to live the way they choose as humans dealing with an unjust world which they rejected, along with those who controlled it. Does it sound familiar in the year 2022? It should. What happened at Béziers is not an isolated tale of history. It is a repeating cycle that happens again and again when humans begin to figure things out about this reality. The Cathars were a group that had only one goal: to break the reincarnation cycle and not return. This chapter will show how the Cathars did seem to have an understanding of how this realm is structured. Okay, this is very fascinating. And it's funny because you talk about the Gnostics, you talk about the Cathars, and the same idea. The material world is some sort of a trap, a prison, a place where we don't necessarily want to be. Not saying we want to exit now prematurely by any means, but echoing the same idea that the goal is eventually not just to pass on, but pass on the right way, prepared and understanding what life is about, preparing our soul, our spirit in different ways so that we can have great discernment. And so when these ideas are shared, it begs the question, and this is the question that I've been wondering, why, if they view it this way, I've been wondering if any of them in their doctrines or documentation say, well, wait a minute, if this is a prison of some sort, a negative place, let's say, wouldn't it make sense that they would talk about not reproducing, because you're just inviting more souls, more energy into this realm? But I hadn't seen that yet. Then I saw it here, and I wanted to highlight it because it only makes sense that that would be a part of the belief system. Because, right? I mean, like, it just doesn't take a genius to figure that out. So here's what the Cathars said. They discouraged the idea of marriage, but that was more because that union was encouraged to have reproduction, which to them was a sin, for it allowed another material body to be formed via, I think I cut something off, which another soul could get placed into the reincarnation cycle. If no more children were born, the cycle would have to stop on its own. The only marriage that mattered to Cathars was a spiritual marriage between themselves, their trapped soul, and the good. I just skipped something. And the good God. My bad. However, it seemed that they did not reject the act of sex. They would have seen it as the same as eating, a natural human process, and engaging in sex would be done for the most effective use of energy. Sex, therefore, would not have been about would have been about raising vibration of energy, which could be used as a wall to the intrusions of the archons. Again, very, very, very interesting. Now, you take this in contrast to the traditional mainstream Christian idea, right? It's be fruitful and multiply. There's multiple places where this is stated in Genesis: be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And a lot of times this is repeated by people to say, no, like you should be reproducing, procreating, and that is the whole purpose. It's stated right there in Genesis. But the thing is, it's what's weird about it, and this is what I never understood. You see this. The question is like, why? Why be fruitful, multiply? Well, because it's in the literature, and this is the word of God. But then it's a tautology. It just loops back into itself. Like there's no explanation. Be fruitful and multiply. Why? Because it makes a better ground for souls, so that more can eventually go to heaven. Is that is that a necessary thing? Because the way it's sort of described in Christianity is we just come in as we're born into this life first, fresh, like this. We only have one life, first of all. Secondly, and then it's the whole thing is a test, and then and then if we pass the test, we get to go to the heavenly plane. How does being fruitful and multiplying improve our test or feed into the system? Is there a purpose of having more souls in heaven? And then, like, you know what I mean? There's never really an explanation. Whereas here, if you're saying it is a sin to reproduce, like there's a reason right there. It's not that it's just written down by a divine source and you just have to accept it. It's like the reason is because we don't want to be inviting more people into the prison and to get trapped in. And if you stop, you're no longer creating the same cells, and therefore you're kind of helping to slow down the system. Anyways, I found this really interesting from the Cathars, because like I said, I never heard that before. But let me know your thoughts as well. Trust yourself, man. Going back to the idea of self-love, Howdie Mickoski talks about this. And this message keeps getting reiterated over and over in so many of these different sources and from so many different people. This idea of sovereignty. I will say this again and again. The only one you can trust is yourself, your true self, not the false selves that are masquerading as you. And the only one savior you need is you. Outside forces are a giant wild card in everything, and other people and groups can be helpful for a while. But if you group together, it will not take long to wind up stuck in another hole. You walk together for a while, always knowing that you must eventually release hands and each find your own specific individual path, your own individual guidance. Some may argue that this is a selfish idea. We should be helping all humanity. You can assist a few along the way, but the process to get out is individualistic. Granted, you help others by becoming free yourself. For each soul who exits, one less soul is trapped. That is how you help. You selfishly gain your sovereignty and freedom, and then make this realm one less congested, deceived soul. The airplane safety message is always put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others. Again, there may be a lot of truth to this idea that we got to save ourselves, and thereby we can help others. And maybe we shouldn't be focusing on rescuing or saving the world, as it were. I'm just not so sure just yet. I'm still figuring that out. Like I said, something inside of me, maybe it's part of the system manipulating me, but something inside of me tells me that I am supposed to be trying to help other people, hence this video right now. But maybe he's onto something here. I don't know. And as always, in my videos, I'm going to try and end on a positive note. This is near the very end of the book. And Howdie says something that I think we've heard over and over and over again, backed up, I think, by the fact that if we truly are getting deceived in 1,000,001 ways, and there's all these systems to trick us, to confuse us, to do all this, just to get us to sign on the dotted line and approve to this cyclic existence, our approval must be pretty important. It must be required. And we must be pretty darn powerful in that case, if all this effort is done to get us to sign. So check this out. One other thing I want to mention, and this may be very important, is that reincarnating back here, it seems, requires some sort of agreement on our part. We cannot be forced to come back. We must agree. This might mean the astral realm is the only place of the lower realms where we have real free will. I already discussed how it does not take long to see that we do not have full free will in the material. Just as Commander Janeway in the Star Trek episode Coda mentioned earlier, the aliens need us to agree with them. If we refuse, we stay in our power and can navigate our own course. And that is it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are done with Exit the Cave. This is part 3 of 3, the final installment. Lots of brilliant nuggets in this book. Lots of food for thought. Lots of things to think about. Lots of things that I want to explore more so in later videos. Let me know your thoughts, guys. What are your big takeaways from this book? Is this somebody that you'd like me to interview? Because, I mean, my plan is to obviously interview Howdie as soon as I can get through his next book. make good on what I said in my email to him, and we can go from there. And I think we'll have a great discussion. We can dive deeper into all these concepts. That's all I got. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.